My talk is called In Praise of Debris. My mother wants to kiss the nursing home gardener. He's a dirty hippie. He squats in the beds by our fence in his torn tight shorts, and his hair is long. There's Bill, she says. His hair hangs stinking gold. He pounds dirt with his hatchet. That's not a hatchet, says my mother. It is a trowel. 2. I didn't say 1 before what I just read, but picture that there was a 1 before that. I'd like to talk today about the muck and mess of making fiction, the lurching and stumbling and digging we do when we're trying to get at something, get to something, without being sure what the something is, and while maybe being afraid of what the something is. I'm interested in how we ready ourselves to find what we didn't know we were looking for, and in what happens when we step into the steaming pile. Rare mushrooms grow from feces. Flowers bloom from graves. To a chemist, says Anton Chekhov, there is nothing impure on earth. The writer should be just as objective as the chemist. He should acknowledge that manure plays a highly respectable role in the landscape. And William Gass says that art, to be successful, dare not be pure. It must be able to invite the dogs. It must furnish bones for the understanding. Shame is the pile. Fear is the pile. Language is the pile. The pile is life's ingredients ruptured and festering. The dogs are invited. 3. The gardener brings his sweaty legs into our house. His shorts are almost nothing and can't cover the bulging. He's never come inside the house before. Next stop will be bedroom. Look at the bulging. Hi there, he says in his hippie voice. No school today? It's Saturday, I point out. 4. For the word dregs, my thesaurus gives me scum, rabble, losers, trash. It also gives me remains, residue, silt, and sediment. In both groups of synonyms is the stain of otherness, outsideness, unwantedness, left behindness, the uncentral and the unusable. When I was growing up in Washington, D.C., the nursing home next door employed a gardener who I believed was having sex with my mother, or if not having sex with her, then vigorously wanting to. Throughout childhood, I feared/loathed this gardener. He was scary and gross. His jean shorts were too small. He crouched grinning in the flower beds under our windows. He triggered my worry that my parents wouldn't stay married. I spent so much energy as a kid trying to hide from the gardener, to not see him, that even now I cringe a little to think of his long, stringy, dark blonde hair. The gardener himself, whose name was Bill, is not the undesirable, unwanted element here. Rather, the dregs are my own feelings about him, the blurred and scratchy memories I have of that nursing home and that garden and that weather. The dregs are sexual shame, anxiety and sadness about my parents' shitty relationship, distrust of a mother I also adored. There's something juicy in this residue, something rich, a smelly heat source, an energy to be harnessed if I'm willing to step into it. In an essay on writing fiction, Neuholland asks, but what of the elements one stumbles upon which are at once revelatory and displeasing, disruptive, tempting to ignore? Look away and you stop the mess happening. Let it pass, give it time, and things feel normal again. You can let the story proceed in keeping with your expectations. You can, in other words, pursue the way away from the trouble that is in you, unquote. Which makes me think of what Elena talked about going somewhere and not being able to see what's more interesting on the sides. Holland's advice here is don't wait for normal to return. Don't wait to return to normal. Don't miss your chance to make use of the trouble that is in you. Such trouble could mean lived experience, wounds of psyche or history or flesh. The trouble could also reside in language itself, in the words you find yourself choosing and arranging, misarranging, deranging, into sentences that say what you weren't expecting them to. 5. My mother wants to kiss the garbanzo. He is a dirty His Majesty. He squatches in the bucket in his torn tight shopping, and his hail smiling morn hangs stinking gold. That's not a hatchway, says my mother. It's a trouser trumpet. 6. The sentences we write emerge from surprising varietals of soil, as Caroline Bergwall puts it, from ancient yet compilable language bones, pressed word fossils, collapsed layers, friable clays, dried pigments, decomposed stretches, discontinuous tracings, unquote. 7. In an essay on teaching writing, Grace Paley offers the following exercise. Write a first-person narrative in the voice of someone you're in conflict with, someone who disturbs you, worries you, someone you don't understand. Use a situation you don't understand. Like Holland, Paley calls us to embrace what is displeasing and disruptive, no matter how tempting not to. But why, one might reasonably ask? It's hard enough to write the stories we know we want in the voices of characters we love, using sentences we already feel comfortable in. Why should we sift through the unwelcome and the soiled? The Gleaners and I is a documentary by the French director Agnes Varda about gleaning, the practice of collecting leftover crop scraps from fields. Varda delves into all sorts of ways to glean, from the literal to the metaphorical, from farm to dumpster to classroom to street. She's interested in people's capacity to see detritus as a cluster of possibilities rather than as junk. She probes the value of derelict for things. Varda is mapping out a way of seeing, the poetics of radical curiosity. What if we stretched our powers of observation in order to perceive what's scattered or hidden on the margins? What if we practiced a sharp-eyed compassion that draws us closer to outsideness, unwantedness, left behindness? We ourselves are sometimes looking at the other. We ourselves are sometimes the other, sometimes left behind. Here's how Grace Paley describes her early writing impulses. I was an outsider in our particular neighborhood, at least I thought I was. I took long rides on Saturday, the Sabbath. My family spoke Russian, but the street spoke Yiddish. There were families of experience I was cut off from. You know, it seemed to me that an entire world was whispering in the other room. In order to get to the core of it all, I used all those sibilant clues. I made fiction, unquote. Those sibilant clues, someone who worries you, a situation you don't understand. 8. I want to kiss no one, says the gardener. I make $7.50 an hour. I trowel the beds and disinfect the lawn. My brother had cancer surgery. I don't agree with him about Reagan, but I'd like him to live. There's the little girl dressed as a ghost. There's the hovering mother. Rain soon, smells like. Fungus on the tree. Please take those dirty pillows away from me. 9. I like how the word debris makes in just 2 syllables a wide claim of brokenness, shipwreckedness. Matter born of rupture, hissing whispers, shards, a girl in a ghost costume who watches for clues. My scraps of writing about the gardener are not nearly as important as the process they represent, pushing into discomfort, staying with the trouble long enough to see a bit more of the world. Giving attention to the dregs. By stepping into a pile of childhood fear, shame, and misapprehension, I sharpen my curiosity, puncture the self-protecting ego, and compassion blows in. Thanks for listening.